spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with Racing Girls Rock Podcast, and it's my honor today to interview Jamie Howe. Jamie and I have tried to get together over the past several months, and schedules just hadn't worked out, but today finally we're able to record this podcast for all of you. I want Jamie to share her story about how she became involved in motorsports and why she loves it and how she became a reporter. So Jamie, I'm going to kind of just let you take the floor. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you live, about your family or your pets, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you for having me, first of all. I'm super excited about this. So my name is Jamie Howe, and I live just outside of Atlanta, where I also grew up and went to school. I live with my husband, Brian, and we have two kids that are 5 and 3, a little boy and a little girl. And we also have 2 dogs. So it's a very busy life away from the racetrack that I get to come home to every time. And that makes it really rewarding.
Yeah, I'm sure it does, because you couldn't do it without the support of your family. So
no, my parents live not very far away, and my little sister does as well. So when I'm gone and my husband's gone, or life just gets crazy, both of my parents are always there to take them, so to take the kids. So it works out really well. There's no way I'd be able to travel for work without them.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care what kind of job you have. If your family's not supportive, you might as well look for something different, because we all need that behind us. So Jamie, tell us a little bit about how you got interested in motorsports and how you ended up where you are today.
Well, I didn't get interested in motorsports until after I was already interested in television. So it was a little bit of an interesting way to get there. So I grew up, like I said, in Metro Atlanta, and our school systems are funded by the lottery. So my high school that I went to had a fully lottery funded broadcast studio. So I took broadcasting all 4 years of high school, but then a part of that was that we worked with CNN. So we had, I don't know if they still have it or not, but it was called the CNN Student Bureau, and they would send a producer that was assigned to our school over the course of each semester and work with us on how to tell stories and what kind of stories people are interested in and how to best visually show what it is that we're trying to relate with our words so that we can put together a video package and make it entertaining. And so that was something that I worked on all through high school. And then had the plan of going to college for broadcast journalism with a double major in political science, given my background with CNN and what I thought my path was going to be. But that summer after I graduated from high school, there was a kids that were on the swim team, and he was the vice president of production for what used to be the American Le Mans series. He knew what all of my plans were and what I had done already, and invited me to come out to the race to see what live television looks like and what a TV compound is and what components make that up. And from that day forward, I never missed an American Le Mans series race. I went to every single one of them. Through that, I also got an internship with Speed, what used to be Speed Channel, and would go after classes on Friday. I would drive up to Charlotte, where they're based, and I was engulfed with all things motorsports, not just sports cars, but I would cut the highlights from the Formula One races or the NASCAR races or the Xfinity races or whatever they had coming into the building. I would cut all of those highlights. So I came into it through production and just really fell in love with motorsports.
it gets in your blood, doesn't it?
It really does. And I mean, I've been very fortunate to be able to be a part of a wide variety of different forms of racing. And I tell you, once you're a fan of one of them, if you just open your horizons a little bit, you can be a fan of all of them, and then you're never bored with anything to watch.
That's true, because especially on the weekend, there's motorcycle racing. And this last weekend, there was IndyCar racing, NASCAR racing, motorcycle racing, and something else. There was like you could have watched racing pretty much all weekend, which was kind of cool. But yeah, and when you get started involved in racing, I think you kind of are more aware, I guess, of the different kinds of racing. You know, there's a lot of people that don't know anything about racing in general. And so they have no idea that women race power boats in Asia, or all the different things that come along with racing. And so I think once you become a fan, then you become more aware. And that's the trick, isn't it? We have to get them to the track to become a fan. That's the hard thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's kind of what I've been working on, is trying to get events at tracks so women have feel like they're a part of, or they're made special, or that it's racing is for them as well, not just for you and I who are already fans.
You know, I did a track day in November at Road Atlanta. There's a sports car driver named Christina Nielsen, who was a 2-time IMSA champion in the GT Daytona class. And she, with a group of business partners, have created this organization called Women in Drive. And it's track days for just women. And what it does is it allows women to go out to the racetrack, drive cars. You have to supply your own car, but you could use your street car, or somebody might have a race ready type car. I was lucky enough to get loaned a Camaro from GM, but you just go out and you learn to drive, and they have coaches that are there to help you, and they tell you about apexes and cornering speed and what your line is supposed to look like, and they walk you through the whole process, but there's no testosterone. So it's just women getting out to enjoy the day. Instead of going to the spa, you go to the racetrack. And from that experience, so many of these women who had driven past the racetrack, or their husbands are involved, or their boyfriends, or whatever, but they never actually had a reason to be interested, are now interested. And I think that's just so cool. And there are programs like that all over the place.
Mm-hmm. There are. And the thing is, if you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know about them, you don't have the opportunity to be involved in them. That's one of the things too we like to do. We try to keep women, up to date on what's happening, or things like that they can take advantage of, because people think that there's that event going on, but you don't. And so you've got to get the word out, and that's one of the things that we try to do. So very, very cool. I would do that in a heartbeat. That would be so fun. I had I not had back surgery 3 years ago, I probably would be interested in doing some racing myself, because I just love that whole thing, but the back does not allow that. So Jamie, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who do you cover? Like, what kind of motorsports have you covered, or what are you doing now? Who do you cover now?
So currently I cover NHRA drag racing. And I've also, just since COVID-19 hit, started covering Moto America. And I had never covered motorcycle racing before. So that was my quarantine project, to learn about 2-wheel racing versus 4-wheel. But NHRA drag racing I've covered since 2011. Did a few years with ESPN, and now with the Fox family of networks, which is also where Moto America airs. I do the endurance sports car races for IMSA Radio, that airs at the circuit on IMSARadio.com, and then SiriusXM picks it up also. So those are the 3 things that I do now. When I started, I did some open wheel racing with Star Mazda. I did CASCAR, the Canadian NASCAR series. I've done some World Challenge, what was now the SRO series, used to be World Challenge. I started covering NASCAR trucks last season and was meant to continue that this year, but then COVID-19 happened. So at track reporters are limited, but right now everything that I cover is on Fox.
Right.
But it is a variety.
It is a variety. So, you know, my husband and I are bikers, and so we used to go to Mid-Ohio every year for the Superbike races. And we actually went to Indy a few years ago for the MotoGP races. And I was shocked that there was hardly anybody there and there was no COVID going on. But, you know, Indy's a big place. And so, but we really enjoyed watching that at Indy. That was a cool place to watch those races. So we tend to watch MotoGP motorcycle racing at this house.
I think they're going back to Indy this year. It's still on the schedule for now. It'll just depend on local governments once, you know, the races get closer. But I just did the first 2 rounds of Moto America with the Superbikes, and the second race at Road America was open to the fans, and it was a huge crowd. I mean, there were people that were camped there all week long. The kids were lining the fences. They had junior races that were happening, like the mini bike races that had full fields of these kids who started at 5 years old. It was really, really neat to see all of these people out at the racetrack again. And in just 2 weeks, Moto America will be at Road Atlanta, which is not far from me. So I get to go and cover that one also. And I'm excited to see how many people come out for that race.
I bet there'll be a lot because I have a friend, Jessica Junk, that is a photographer, but she does a lot of covering at Road America because it's close to where she lives. And she was there both of those weekends as well. And she said it was just night and day when the fans are there than when they're not. And you can see that even in NASCAR. The drivers just are so appreciative of the fans that are coming out. I just keep praying that we just keep opening it up and let more and more and more fans come. So, yeah, there's nothing like seeing those kids line the fence or on the track. That's the future of our sport, isn't it?
It is. And they do a really nice job of it over there. They have, which is really hard in a lot of forms of racing, to have an actual ladder system, have how to get to the big race. Just because of the costs that are involved and the logistics of everything. But when it comes to bikes, it was really eye-opening for me. I mean, I have a 5-year-old little boy who has his little motor-powered Stasic bike. And in just a little bit of time, he would be big enough and skilled enough to go into one of those mini races. And then from minis, you go to juniors and then twins and then stock 1000. And there's an actual ladder system that exists within the United States.
Right. Right. And that, you know, we think that there is in other kinds of racing, but it's really not organized or put together nearly as well as the motorcycle piece of it.
No, because there just aren't. You think, like, take drag racing, for example. They have a fantastic junior dragster program. And kids of all ages have places all over the country where they can go and run their junior dragsters. But then what is there between junior dragsters and Top Fuel? There's alcohol, there's the comp class, but just logistically, it's not as in your face. Here we go.
No, it's more, you've got to really commit to it. You've got to travel. You know, you have to travel everywhere. And so that's the expense, even not just the cars, but the traveling is a huge expense for families.
For families, absolutely. I mean, it does teach you, I think it teaches the kids that every time you go to the racetrack, it has to count for something. And there are certainly important lessons in that. And if the goal is to race in the big class and Top Fuel or in Funny Car, they need to understand the importance of the travel and, you know, what it takes when you're on the road and all of that stuff. So certainly there are lessons, but it's just so expensive for families sometimes.
Yeah, it really is. We have 131 Motorsports Park, was 15 minutes from my house. And I want to say about 3 weeks ago, they had a big race there, and it was full of campers. But racing was sort of allowed at the time in Michigan. Some tracks were running, some weren't. But these people came from all over the United States. And you look at their motorhomes that pull campers and the big dualies on the trucks, and you just, aisle after aisle of these, and you just think how much money there is tied up in those cars. It's not something to just play around with. It's serious business. And it just was amazing to me.
It really, it really is the amount of money that is spent on it, but it's across the board really too. I mean, a lot of kids start road racing in go-karts, and even karting in the United States has gotten to be so expensive. And you think, you used to ride a go-kart around your neighborhood, and nowadays you can't get to the kart track for less than like $50,000 a season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my granddaughters both started racing quarter midgets here in Kalamazoo, and the one granddaughter kept going. The other one didn't race for a while. This year she's going to race a little bit if we can go back to racing, because right now there's no racing in Michigan. So you have to go to Indiana if you want to race, which a lot of people do. It's not that far away, but the expense is something I don't know how we get a handle on it, because I'd like to see more kids, more people be able to participate. But the cost is very prohibitive for a lot of people, and the sponsorships are not there like they used to be. So you see less and less people at the track. I think that it's the cost that's keeping them away more than anything.
Yeah, you used to have a lot more junior drivers and people who won scholarships. The scholarship programs, I think if the sponsorship money was there, or there were big teams across all of motorsports that wanted to put some kids through a scholarship program, it'd be a great place to start, just to get some kids back into the action. Because what you don't want to do is have the sport age out and have all of the drivers or the riders just become too old and there not be enough talent to fill in for them.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And, we need to think about that. Some of those big teams, that would be great for them to sponsor some younger kids and move them up, and like a development series for that. So yeah, there's a lot to motorsports that most people don't think about that's behind the scenes. And that's kind of what I like to do. I like to tell people, go to the track some weekend, whatever kind of racing it is, and follow your favorite driver, or follow a driver who's willing to let you be in their pits with them, or watch what all they have to do to get that car on the track. Because so many people go to the racetrack, they sit down, they get their beer, they get their snacks, and they watch the races and they go home, and they never think about how much money, how much time is invested to get those cars there for their entertainment. And so I always encourage people, at least once, go to the track when the team gets there at noon, when the races aren't till 7:00, and go through the steps. And then you're, I think, a much better fan, a much more appreciative fan of what they're offering for your entertainment, because it is an entertainment sport. Exactly.
And that has to be at the forefront of what racing is. It's always an entertainment. One of the things that is great about NHRA is that they allow, every ticket is a pit pass.
Right.
And one of the things that impressed me when I first went to my first drag race was how much the drivers are actually doing in between the different rounds. I mean, the fact that the cars come in and are completely torn apart and rebuilt from the bottom of the engine up after each round is impressive enough. But then you watch what the drivers are doing, and they don't just strap into the cars and make these runs. They have to pack their parachutes. A lot of them are responsible for the fuel mixture. They sign autographs, and they're doing all of this work with fans just standing, 6 feet away from the race car. So it's a great show in between rounds if you can make it out to the racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one of the things that drag racing does better or different, however you want to look at it, than NASCAR or even, truck series, whatever it might be, because it's obviously harder to get to the drivers in those races. So Jamie, what is your favorite thing about being a reporter at the racetrack?
I love telling the stories of the people. I mean, I think that the guys that are in the booth, they really get to tell the story of the race and what's happening on the track, whether it be in road racing or on a drag strip or whatever. They get to call that action, but people are what people relate to. And so I like to be able to share what's going on in the head of that driver. What kind of things were they thinking about before they got in the car? What sort of things have changed within the team? Is there a new team dynamic? Just all of the behind the scenes stuff that you wouldn't get if you were just watching as a spectator in the stands or watching on your television at home.
Yeah, I love the stories. I'm with you there. I owned a weekly newspaper for 10 years in a little town in Illinois, and we called it the good newspaper because we did human interest stories. And if you wanted to read the court reports and the obituaries, then you needed to buy the daily paper, because I wanted to tell the stories of people, and that's always been close to my heart. It's why I do the magazine that I do, because I like telling those ladies' stories. And you know, I've had people say, "Oh, well, who have you have the magazine?" as if it has to be famous people. And I said, most of the time, it's people you've never heard of. It's women you would have never heard of, but they all have a story and they all have a passion for motorsports. And when they get their story put into even a digital magazine like mine, it just makes their day. It just makes them feel important and celebrated. And I love doing that. And that's why we do the magazine. What have you got going on now this summer? So COVID hit, that really put a stop to most of all of us, what we were planning. I had about a dozen events planned at NASCAR tracks for women starting back in April. The only one that's still on the schedule is Phoenix for championship weekend on the day of the Xfinity race. So we're hoping that's still gonna come off. But what does your schedule look like, and where will you be now, or do you know, the rest of the season?
It's really it's really fluid at the moment, just because race schedules are so up and down. The series that I cover are at the beck and call, I guess, they're at the mercy of the local governments. Mm-hmm. So, for example, NHRA was supposed to go to Seattle next week, and we know that that's not going to happen. Denver didn't happen. Brainerd has been postponed, and those are local government decisions. That's not the NHRA saying we don't want to go anywhere. So for now, my next drag race will be at Indy, what we're calling Indy 3. It'll be the third race in a row at Indianapolis, August 7th, 8th, 9th, that weekend. But before that, I'll do Moto America at Road Atlanta, which is July 31st through August 2nd. So I'll have those superbike races, all of those races, actually. And then after that, it's really up in the air. There are a few drag racing NHRA supposed to come to Atlanta and Commerce at the end of August, and then go straight back to Indy for the U.S. Nationals. So fingers crossed that both of those events happen. But until the local governments say you are 100% allowed to come in and bring fans with you, the events won't happen. So that's what has it all up in the air.
Yeah, so I guess the advice is just what I tell everybody. You just have to stay tuned into social media, or follow, whatever series you want to go attend. Follow them, go to their website, because it could change from today to tomorrow. And Michigan, like I said, there's no racing here. They pretty much shut everybody down. I can go 2 hours or less to Indiana and watch racing. So you have to just be aware of what's happening. It's unfortunate. It's costs a lot of people. I feel bad for the people that own small tracks, because they have a big payment and no way to have any races. And and that carries all the way up to NASCAR. How many of those tracks didn't get to have the races that they were expecting? And they're dependent on the fans and the food and the beer and all of that. And, like you said, you're limited to how many races you can go to. I haven't been able to go to any since I was in Phoenix in March, and then that was the last race. I have a hard card, but they are so limiting how many of us can come that I haven't even asked to go anymore until I see that they're going to open it back up. So it's really been frustrating. It's been frustrating not to be able to go, but I'm trying to find the positive in it. So, racing is important to you and I.
I think that would be.
Go ahead.
I think that would be my one message to fans, is that just look at the sanctioning bodies with a little bit of a smile on your face before you throw out some criticism. There have been a lot of people, as ugly as social media can be some days, there's been a lot of people who have been really negative about races in all different series being canceled or moved or postponed. And this is something that's completely unprecedented.
Right.
They're not executives sitting in boardrooms going, how can we ruin our fans' days today? But it seems like that's what some people think. And so people just need to be patient, give a little bit of grace and be flexible with your plans. And I mean, that's all that we can do. I could be called later this afternoon and be told that I have to be at a race next weekend for something that I've never covered before, because that's just how quickly things are changing. So anybody that can be flexible and just enjoy whatever you have out there, and just like all things we've learned in 2020, just don't take it for granted because we don't know when it will stop again.
Isn't that true? And we've all been so guilty of taking things for granted. And I like what I heard somebody say, that 2020 is the year of resetting. Reset your priorities, reset your goals.
Yes.
Reset the things that are important to you. We know now that we can get by on less. We can get by going less places, doing less things, and be just as happy, if not happier. So I agree. Patience is something that we all need to have an abundance of right now, and empathy for the people who really want to be out there promoting the races, holding the races, and they just can't. And so we have to be supportive of those people. And I appreciate that you said that, Jamie. Yeah. So is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share with the listeners?
When you talk about your audience as being girls who want to be involved in motorsports, I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned along the way was don't ever be afraid to ask a question, whether that be to a male counterpart or a female counterpart. Don't let the fact that you're trying to get into a male-dominated world hinder the way you do your job. And go into every situation knowing that you're in the situation you're supposed to be in at that particular point in time. And if I had learned that probably 5 years earlier, I think I would have progressed much faster. But I was always afraid to offend somebody or to sound silly or to be thought of as, oh, she's just a girl, she doesn't know anything. But we learn by asking. So I think that anybody, male or female, who wants to go into this industry or any industry, just don't be afraid to ask.
I think that's really good advice, because what they used to say in school, there's never a dumb question, although sometimes we're made to feel dumb when we ask those questions. But that's such good advice, because the little 3-year-old that asks why all the time, they're trying to learn, right? Yes. And I know you said you have a 3-year-old daughter. They're just trying to learn, and we have to remember that that's how they learn. And as well as you and I, we have to ask those questions if we don't know. And at my age of 64, I'm not afraid to say, I really don't know. I'll find out for you, and that's my best answer. So that's kind of how I've learned to handle that situation, so I don't look stupid or dumb or whatever. But Jamie, I've really enjoyed talking to you today. I'm sorry we didn't get this done sooner, but everything is in the right time, and today was the right time for you and I to be able to have a conversation. And I've really wanted to share about you. I've watched you on TV, and I think I texted you one day and said, I just saw you on TV, or sent you a Facebook message. And so it's kind of fun to be able to say, hey, I've talked to her. I know her. She's my friend. And so now that we've done this podcast, you're in the friends group for me. And I really appreciate that you took the time today. So any last thoughts that you might have before we say goodbye?
No, I can't wait to hear it. And I really appreciate you having me on and reaching out to me on Facebook. Some people don't have such nice things to say on Facebook, so I appreciate it very much.
Well, I think Twitter's the worst, actually. Twitter can be pretty nasty. So I don't do a lot on Twitter, but Facebook's kind of where I live. And so my daughters are trying to get me more involved in Instagram. So I'm working on getting my Instagram skills a little more honed, but Facebook's kind of where I'm at. So I just want to thank you again for being with us, and we'll be airing this tomorrow on Racing Girls Rock. And so I'll send you the link and you'll be able to share it. And you have a good rest of your week, and I'll probably see you on TV before I see you in person.
Okay, probably.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.